Hey guys, how you doing? How you doing? In this last video that we did together, we talked about how to draw a basic tree, tips on what you can do and what not to do, how to draw the bark and the roots, yada yada yada. Well, this time I'm going to be taking you on a little journey where I'm going to be turning your parents into pigs. No, not really, no. Today we're actually wrapping up how to draw trees with one more tutorial that covers drawing leaves, different styles that you can make, and some final drawing tips. It might be kind of a long video, but if you can stick with me until the end, I promise I'll make it worth your time. So grab your sketchbook, get a drink, and let's get into it. Let's start with how to draw individual tree leaves. If you want them to look dynamic, or you want to be able to draw them in different angles, then check out this cool technique that utilizes lines and points. Here's a breakdown of what it looks like. Think of the leaf as having 3 guiding lines and 2 anchor points. You place 1 point at the top and 1 point at the bottom. Then you draw in 3 lines that converge back to these 2 points. Now what you end up getting is a drawing that looks like a leaf. Now when you draw these 3 lines going towards these anchor points, you'll find that it helps you maintain the leaf structure even when the leaf is twisting or curling. These drawings that you see here are leaves that are going in different directions. But note how even though their direction may be changing, the center line will always stay right in the middle. You can then twist the leaf or curl it however you want, and it'll still look like the same leaf. There's also a more advanced method using boxes and X lines to rotate objects in space, but we're not going to cover that for this video. If you're interested in learning more about that technique, check out Marshall Vandruff at Proco, where he explains perspective techniques in depth. But now let's talk about leaf variety, because of course, and you know this, not all leaves look the same. Because there are so many tree species out there, that means a ton of different ways to draw their leaves. On screen, you'll see a collection of leaf references that I found online. Notice the different shapes and sizes and styles. You can really change up the texture and look of a leaf by simply altering your mark making. Try it out for yourself. Try creating leaves with hatching marks, scribbly marks, spiky marks, round and bubbly marks, or maybe even a combination of one of these. The possibilities are vast. And you'll find that each manga artist has their own unique way of drawing leaves. For example, Ichiro Oda from One Piece uses hatching lines for his leaves, and Takehiko Inoue, the creator of Vagabond, leans into high contrast and detail. Now there's no one correct way to draw leaves, but I do encourage you to experiment and find a look that fits your style. Let me show you a quick demo comparison just to hit home my point. This sketch that I'm doing right here is meant to be a small bamboo bush, and I'm using these quick spiky marks to represent the leaves. As I draw the bush, I'm also keeping in mind something we talked about in a previous video, where I'm trying not to outline the shape of the brush. Now, for comparison, I'm going to be drawing the same bush a second time, but this time I'm changing the shape of the leaves completely. And what you'll notice, once they're side by side, is how just that one small change in the leaf shape can really change how the bush ends up looking and feeling. It's a subtle change, but it really shows the impact your mark-making choices can have on the final look of your trees and bushes. And that's just one example. In this next speed drawing, I'm going to be sketching out a fir tree in my own style. Now, drawing a fir tree is going to be a little different compared to how we approached maple trees or birch trees in earlier videos. You'll start by drawing a tall vertical trunk, nice and straight, then lightly sketch in several cone shapes along the trunk to act as guides for the leaf placement. These cones will help you figure out how long the branches should be at each level of the tree. Once that's in place, it's time to draw in the branches. Picture them wrapping around the trunk like a merry-go-round, circling outward and downward. As you move down the tree, the branches should be getting longer and wider, forming that classic triangle silhouette Christmas trees are known for. And finally, to bring it all together, go in with some shading and leaf texture, whatever extra marks you need to make it feel like a natural tree. Now, for a bit of contrast, let's say you're short on time. You don't always need to draw every single leaf with full detail. Here's a trick. You can simplify the shapes and keep the shading minimal. This way, you still capture the essence of the tree, but it's way faster. Check out these two fir trees that I drew using silhouettes and limited shading. It's a quicker process, but it still reads clearly to the viewer what these are. You can utilize this silhouette method for placing trees in the background, especially when the trees aren't meant to be the main focus of the scene. If you want the viewer to focus more on your characters or another important subject, then using simpler, less detailed trees in the background is ideal. This helps guide the viewer's eye toward what matters the most, without them getting distracted by overly detailed background elements. You still with me? Cool. Because the last tree I'm going to show you how to draw is a palm tree. Now, unlike fir trees or maple trees, palm trees are built a little differently. They often lead to one side and the leaves all stem from a central point at the top of the trunk. You could start by drawing your tree trunk and then mark that central point. From there, draw long, sweeping leaves shooting outward and upward, and then drooping down as they get closer to the ground due to gravity. The key is all of the leaves will be connected to that one central point. If you're trying to picture the shape, think of a firework exploding, with all of the lines radiating from that one spot. There are different styles and different processes depending on the type of tree that you're drawing, but if you take the time to study and practice a variety of them, that's really the best way to improve your ability to draw trees. Now, I might decide to make another video where I can personally help you guys with your trees by redrawing over them, but let me know if that's something that you guys would be interested in. I'd be happy to provide you with some feedback on how to make your trees better if you send me some drawings that you're working on. Alright, now that we're about halfway through the video, let's go ahead and ship. Ah, gosh, damn it. Earlier, I showed you how to simplify your trees, but now I want to do the same for leaves, because let's be real, drawing a whole cluster of detailed individual leaves might look awesome at the end, but it takes forever to do. So here's the good news. If you're wondering if there is an easier and faster way to do this, then the answer is yes, and that's to keep things simple, just like I mentioned before. Instead of trying to draw every single leaf on a tree, you can just suggest the overall shape and texture with limited intentional markings. As you can see here, you can still get that cluttered leaf look without all the extra work. But if you still happen to find yourself struggling with drawing leaves, I'd recommend checking out a few tutorials like I did for this video on Pinterest, YouTube, or even in art books. These are all great resources that can help take your current tree drawing knowledge and level it up. And by the way, if you haven't already figured it out, these same techniques can also apply to bushes too. You can think of bushes as just smaller trees. If you cut off the trunk, all that's left is the leaves. And well, that's pretty much a bush. Now, some bushes do have visible trunks, or even branches, like the ones I'm showing you on the screen. But you would be drawing them pretty much the same way as you would your tree foliage. Next up, let's switch gears and talk about drawing groups of trees instead of just one at a time. Maybe you're illustrating a whole forest, or a scene where your character is walking down a path lined with trees. Now, one trick I've noticed some manga artists use is tree silhouettes to quickly fill in trees in the background, like we talked about before. Sometimes they even take photographs of actual trees, turn them black and white, and then just drop them in as background elements. Now you might be wondering, well hey, can I do that too? Is there some kind of shortcut or tool to speed up this process without me having to draw multiple trees in my background? And yes, there is. It's called tree brushes, the ultimate cheat sheet for drawing lots of trees fast. Now, again, you might be wondering, why are you calling it cheating though? If I could just make a whole bunch of trees by copying and pasting ones that were already drawn for me, then what's the problem? Well, the problem is a couple of things. Using pre-made tree brushes might seem like a huge time saver at first, but it comes with a few downsides. Firstly, you're not actually learning how to draw trees yourself. And when it's time to draw one from scratch, you might find yourself stuck and unsure of where to start. The second biggest problem is a lack of variation. Copy-pasting the same tree over and over makes your trees look like clones. Flat, boring, uninteresting, and at worst, it can make you look like a lazy artist. Thirdly, perspective issues often pop up with tree brushes. When you slap down a bunch of tree stamps, they can end up looking clumped together with trunks and branches overlapping in weird ways that don't look natural, kind of like what you see here. Plus, if you try to use those same brushes in different scenes or perspectives, they won't always fit or work well. The perspective can be totally off, making your background look weird or messy. So my advice, just avoid relying on tree brushes whenever you can and draw trees on your own instead. But, and here's the big but, if you really insist on using tree brushes and stamps, then here are my suggestions and tips to make them work the best. Number 1, make sure to vary your trees. Don't just copy and paste the same tree repeatedly. Add differences in shape, size, and placement to keep things looking natural. And number 2, I suggest you look for brushes that let you stamp clusters of leaves instead of whole trees. That way, you can still build the trees yourself by placing the leaves wherever you want, and this gives you more control in how your trees look in your manga. Now, the next thing you might be thinking is, well hey Jackie, what about the manga Attack on Titan, where all of the woodland trees look pretty much the same? Well, even there, the trees aren't exactly the same. Each one was hand-drawn, with subtle differences in bark, leaves, and branch placement. It's these small variations that make the forest believable and alive. So, if you really want to improve, my recommendation is to learn how to draw trees yourself and skip the brushes and stamps as much as possible. Don't get lazy by relying on pre-made brushes. Handmade trees with variation, even if they're simple looking, will always look better than copy-paste clones. Finally, the last thing I want to cover in this video is how to draw trees from a distance. For this part, I'll be using Takehiko Inoue, the creator of Vagabond, as a reference. If you're not familiar with his work, he draws some of the most realistic and beautifully detailed trees and backgrounds I've ever seen in a manga. If you want to improve your tree drawing skills, trying to replicate his style is a great way to learn. Now, like many other manga artists, Inoue uses a technique called atmospheric perspective. This is where objects in the foreground are drawn with more detail, while objects in the background have less detail, creating a sense of depth and distance. You can see me applying that here in this short clip. I start by drawing leaves in the background with very minimal detail, and as I move forward toward the foreground, I gradually add more detail and texture. As another example, These trees here that are closer to the viewer might have sharper, more defined edges, while leaves and trees that are farther away can be simplified or almost suggested with shapes. Sometimes, instead of using less detail, you can have distant trees fade out into the background by using lighter lines and softer shading, like the images I'm showing on the screen here. Another trick for atmospheric perspective is to use more contrast and heavier shading on trees that are close to the viewer or the ones that you want to stand out in your composition. At the end of the day, I'd recommend studying from your favorite manga artists and seeing how they handle tree depth and distance in their work. That way you can learn different techniques and apply them to get the exact look you want in your own illustrations. Anyways, I think that just about covers everything as far as tree drawing goes. I hope this How to Draw Trees series was helpful for you and that you were able to learn a thing or two. If you found it useful, please consider liking, commenting, or sharing these videos. They take a lot of time for me to make, so any support would really help me out with the algorithm and make it easier for others to find these tutorials as well. Anywho, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!